Miracle Brokers is back. That's right. We're fully reopened and back to work. Our agents are here to serve you with all of your packing and shipping needs. Need to move? Don't worry. Give us a call today. Collect a package, shipping around the world, or straight to Cayman? You got it. Give us a call on 949-5989. Collection by personalized appointment only, where our dedicated agents are on standby to personally assist you. Don't forget to wear your mask, maintain social distancing, and one person per appointment. Check us out at miraclebrokers.com today. You're now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
All right, folks. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I had a little mic check problem there, so I had to quickly exit out. And of course, what better way to do that than to play our national song, which is an amazing song. I still can't believe that the person who wrote that song, who's made such an impact on this community, is not yet a national hero. To me, that just blows my mind. And we hope to one day have that addressed here on the program. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let us say our usual good morning. Shout outs to every single person out there. Aliano, thank you so much for tuning in. Tania says she's here and waiting. She was early. Thank you. Good morning, Dawn. Thank you so much. Hi, Wanda. Straight from Jamaica, Tania, bringing it live from the 876. Thank you. Yes, we had no sound because I did not plug in the mic, and it's as simple as that, folks. Morna, thank you for tuning in. Morna says it's a beautiful day here in the Cayman Islands. Happy Tuesday, and happy Tuesday to Morna and everybody else that's out there. Might I say, by way of a recent update, we had some additional test results yesterday in terms of COVID 19, and we did have some positive results come back. It was only 2 out of, let me get the exact number here, but I still think we're trending pretty well. It was 552 tests since Friday, and 2 were identified as positive as part of the screening program. So, of course, as you guys know, we have reopened the sister islands with some stipulations in place. So make sure that if you're traveling to and fro, you know what those are. It's a little bit easier if they're coming into Grand Cayman and they're just coming for less than 72 hours. There's no testing or anything of the sort required. Some people find that a little odd because you don't need 72 hours with this virus. But nonetheless, that's what they have put in place. So we'll see how well that works out. So Evelyn, of course, is here. Gina, good morning. Jake never misses a beat. Catherine Smalden, thank you, Catherine. Ronika says, blessed good morning to you, Sandy, and everyone out there. Thank you. And Bonnie, Erica, and I know lots of others of you are here, but just sit back and watch silently. And that's okay too. That's all right. No worries. Some of you are still saying no sound. So Bonnie, I think you just need to refresh. We should be good with audio now. And of course, you know, guys, I'm excited to be welcoming a special guest into the studio today, which we're going to do just here in a second. Yesterday, the DMV opened for the first time. And can I tell you, based on the photo and the reports that we have received, it was crazy out there. Hundreds of people lined up in the hot sun from early morning. You guys remember during the show, we got a photo of what it looked like at 7:30. Well, reports are that people were there long before 7:30. They were trying to beat the mad rush and became part of the mad rush, so to speak. But my understanding is that people might have been there from 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're trying to get some numbers in terms of roughly how many people were there, but it was a lot. Some people are smart enough to take their umbrellas. Thankfully, it looked like the DMV, or the DVDL is the proper name here in the Cayman Islands, were well prepared to a certain extent. So they did have tents set up, and people were just lounging out, folks. They were lying on the steps. They were under the tents. Some had their own umbrellas. For a moment there, it seems like it got a little bit heated. So we're going to be looking into some of what was going on there, but hopefully things will settle down. Listen, folks, you survived this long without a driver's license. You survived, COVID without your vehicle being registered. So trust me, another couple days isn't going to kill you. You're not going to get a ticket. Everybody understands the situation, circumstances that we are living under. So it's all good. It's all good. Krista, big up Krista from Eating Clean. Krista has joined us this morning as well. Now, you guys know yesterday morning I had a little bit of an episode where I felt like my blood sugar had dropped during the show. So I know if Krista was watching, she would have been like, why is Sandy not just ordering her breakfast so I can deliver it to her before she starts the show? And I think, Krista, we got to do something soon. But I've got apples this morning, and I've got some nice cherries from Foster's. Shout out to your friends over at Foster's Supermarket. Made a mad rush last night. Now, listen, they've still got somewhat amended hours from 6:30 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So they're no longer open until 11. And it might be that they actually keep these new hours. So I think COVID is giving people an opportunity to sort of, reevaluate even their existing protocols and business hours and so on. So Foster's may be one of those places that adjust permanently their business hours. So we'll see how that works out. But for right now, it's still 6:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. So yes, Krista, I know, right? So we need to talk, because in the morning, I basically jump up and I'm rushing to get ready for the show. And food is normally the very last thing that I think of. Ingrid, good morning to the beautiful Ingrid. Thank you so much for joining us. And without any further ado, we're going to welcome Mr. Kenneth Bryan, who, as you guys know, is the representative for Georgetown Central. Now, Kenneth, this is his first time as an MLA, and he's had a little bit of a bumpy experience along the way, so we might get to talk about some of those things. But Kenneth is really learning very, very quickly. And to be honest, the thing I really enjoy and love about Kenneth is his desire to learn. So, you know, Kenneth has been doing some things a little bit differently. And we're going to talk about some of that as well, and the practicality of him wanting to involve every single person in the process. That is called participatory democracy. And there's multiple frames of thought here in terms of how this works. And so I want to explain it to you guys a little bit later on in the show, because I think it's a little important to understand what true participatory democracy means, which I think is what Kenneth believes in. We'll get some clarification from him here in a second. And how practical is it for it to really, really work? So Joy, thank you, and good morning for tuning in. Good morning, Jennifer. Oh yes, thank you, Morna, for reminding me. Today is superfan Sue McLaughlin's birthday. So we wish to say happy birthday to the beautiful Sue McLaughlin. Sue, I don't even know how old she is, but she looks young enough to me. So as you guys know, Sue's here most mornings. I don't know if she's here yet. She might be enjoying a glass of champagne for her birthday already. I'm not really sure. But big shout out to Sue. We all here at Cayman Law Road wish you a happy birthday, and wishing you many, many more. And especially today, we hope that you just will relax and have a fabulous time of whatever it is that you're going to do. And I'm sure that your daughters will ensure that you have a great birthday. So again, yes, thank you so much, Morna, for that reminder. Hi, Sue, there you are. Sue, good morning. We need to play a little happy birthday song for you, my friend. Stay tuned for it. Let's go ahead and grab Kenneth into the program here, into our studio. Good morning, Mr. Kenneth Bryan. I feel like I need to give you a nice.
Good morning,
How are you?
Sandy. I'm well. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Oh, can anyone tell me if they can hear Kenneth? Because, hold on, Kenneth, let me make sure this, let's try that again.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning,
yeah,
Sandy.
I can read lips. There we are.
Okay.
There is a little bit of a delay, but I got you. All right, so good morning, Kenneth. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Finally, after you decided to invite me. See, you invited everybody else except me, but I'll beat you up about that another time.
I know. This is Kenneth's first time. I can't believe it, actually. Like, I kind of feel like you've been here before, but in my head, I know that this is actually Kenneth's first time. And, you know, we started the show well over a year ago. It's like a year and a half now, but this is Kenneth's first time. I think he's been busy. We've been busy. But you know what? Better late than never. And we're so thankful to have Kenneth joining us here this morning. Marva says she's hearing him loud and clear. Nicole Brown says good morning. And Morna also says good morning to Kenneth. So lots of people, Irvin, everyone is here, tuned in and ready to hear what you have got to say. So, you know, this is your first appearance, but I know by no means it will be your last appearance. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up. I'm gearing up for the upcoming election, and we really want to get to know our candidates on a totally different level and perhaps some non-traditional ways. So Jevy says, good morning, Sandy and Kenneth, and a happy belated birthday to Kenneth. So yes, Kenneth, on Sunday, you also celebrated a birthday, and it just happens to be the big 4-0. So happy birthday. Tell us a little bit about how your birthday celebrations went.
Well, firstly, I want to say thank you so much for the birthday wishes. I did see that CMR did send some greetings out to me, so that I do appreciate. I really am overwhelmed by how much birthday wishes and greetings I got, into the thousands. So
Mm-hmm.
it made me feel really loved, and a lot of people, obviously, cared so much to send a message. So I was really pleased for that. I did nothing really other than going fishing with my kids and my family Sunday morning, and the rest of the day was intentionally done to do nothing. That was
Good.
my purpose, my goal. Because politics is overwhelming, and you can't shut your brain off ever, especially when you got devices. So did nothing, 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 nothing other than fishing and get some smiles from my kids. That was the best
Well,
birthday present for me.
yeah, that's awesome, and I like to hear that. Some family time well spent, no doubt. And of course, as you guys know, Kenneth has two girls, two beautiful girls that I'm sure keep him busy anyway. But
They
Kenneth is
do.
always finding a way to keep them involved and active in things. So I love to see him out and about with his girls. Sometimes you see them on the road running errands with each other. And those are the moments that really warm your heart, regardless of whether someone is an MLA or CEO, whatever they do in life. The most important job once they are a parent is actually being a good parent. And
Yeah.
so I love to see that. So that sounds like the perfect birthday. Sue will talk to you a little bit later on, maybe about what you've got scheduled for your birthday celebrations today. And of course, you guys know that next month coming out will be my birthday celebration. So maybe we'll have a little birthday party here on whatever evening shows on Cayman Law Road. All right,
Sounds like
Kenneth. So
fun.
let's dig in deep a little bit here. Let's jump right in. There's been a lot that has happened in your political career. We certainly can't delve into all of it. Since you've been an MLA, you're coming up into your fourth year now, I guess, because next year May is going to be the general election already, which is shocking. But that time really flew by quickly. How have you been doing as an MLA? Tell us, what's experience been like so far. I think it's a little bit of sink or swim at times, but fill us in on how things have been going for you and what your perspectives are on politics now that you're a little bit on the inside.
All right. First, before I answer the question, I would like to ask everybody to please share this video. The more people watch it, the more people see it, the more people know what my perspectives are. So pressing that share button would be a great pleasure. So I hope you share this video. In respect to your question, I'm not sure how this program works. Am I supposed to be seeing you or seeing myself? Because I'm just seeing myself.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm still here. So
Okay. I wasn't sure.
sometimes,
Sure.
sometimes I give you the floor so other people can see you.
Okay.
So yes.
All right. So to answer your question, it's been an exciting 3 years. Um, Not many surprises, a lot of disappointments in respect to hoping that the way we make our decisions were a little bit more mature and respectful and participatory. But it is politics, and I kind of knew that because I was somewhat in there before, just not an elected representative. I was a representative around political persons before. So I wasn't surprised by it, a little disappointed on how deep it gets, but it's a part of the environment. That's why my campaign was to be a representative, not a politician, because I think there's a vast difference between the two. Um, I've been honored, to be honest with you. It feels thrilling to be the voice of the people of Georgetown Central. I have some really amazing constituents who genuinely care about this country, and I'm glad that a lot of my constituents are now becoming more in tune with technology, whereby the line of communication can be more frequent, particularly with the apps such as WhatsApp, Facebook, and the like, and Facebook Live, which allows the level of communication to be more fluent. And that's the key part to what you were saying earlier about participatory democracy. One of my key plans, just to actually break out a surprise here for you, is you may have heard me ask a question in the Legislative Assembly just the other day about, is there any offerings to persons who are not advanced with IT and technology to offer up possibly like training programs on smart devices, because what I have is I have a large number of telephone numbers from my constituents, which allows me to, with a snap of a finger, I can talk to them on a wide broadcast basis. But there's obviously a pretty decent percentage of people in my constituency who don't use technology like that or have a smartphone. They use the traditional ones. So my intention is I want to bring those numbers up, because the more of my registered voters who are connected to me that quickly by just a snap of a finger, the more I'm doing my job, which I intend to do, which is to do participatory democracy. So it's my intention to try to get a training program as soon as we are opened up to have more gatherings and people feel more safe. Where, like, say for instance, those who are not familiar with WhatsApp or smartphones, is to offer up with one of the telephone companies a cheap version of a smart device that comes with simple platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp. That way they can watch the show here at Cayman Mile Road in the mornings, because, you know, we don't have TV anymore, and Cayman Mile Road is taking the #1 spot now for the #1 watched radio show, or political show, not radio show,
Yeah, I
platform.
mean, it's kind of interesting that you say that, Kenneth, because just yesterday I was having a meeting with someone, and we were talking about, you know, are we reaching enough people even here in Cayman Mile Road? Now, of course, we literally reach thousands of people because Facebook tells us precisely how many persons, you know, watch our videos even after the fact. So we know that our reach is extremely wide. But we were trying to figure out, you know, does it make sense for us to try to do something in terms of a traditional radio format? Like you said, for those people who may not have access to the technology. But, you know, even speaking to people in radio, they have no way of knowing or gauging how many people are actually listening to the radio. So we don't know if it's 10 people, 30 people, or 50,000 people. And so we have the ability to, I think, move forward with technology. And to me, I kind of hate to say this, but radio is almost a step back for me in terms of what we do and what our platform is. So, for example, Cecile said that she's joining us from Ireland this morning. And the beauty of this particular format is people all over the world can join us. We've got, for sure, normally we have Larry. I don't know if Larry hasn't checked in this morning as yet, but Larry is normally joining us from New York. Tania is joining us from Jamaica this morning. Cecile is in Ireland. And there are other people who normally pop into the scene. Marshall, I haven't seen him as yet, but he lives in the US. So the ability to reach people, Caymanians, non-Caymanians, you know, far and wide, is available through this medium. But we do appreciate that perhaps, especially for the slightly older generation, that those persons are used to that traditional radio format. So one of the ways, I think, which you have just mentioned, trying to breach that gap, is not to go backwards, because for me, I do feel like radio is a step backwards. TV is even now a step backwards. Print media is a step backwards. You know, we
should bring them forward. We got to bring those persons who are not technology efficient. Well,
yeah,
you know,
so that idea.
The pandemic has done a very unique thing. It was forced us to step forward. I think it's safe to say there's a lot of people who probably didn't tune into YouTube or Facebook before, but because the press conferences were streamed live that way, they figured it out, and they were doing it for 3 months. So more people are on platforms now. So my ultimate goal is to try to get some devices in the hands of those persons who don't know how to use it, and offer up some classes of some sort to them so they can get on board. Because I think not only from participatory democracy service level, but also in the event we ever have an emergency like this again, where we're in lockdown. One of the things that bothered me the most about this pandemic is that there were so many seniors and persons who were not efficient with technology who was left behind from offerings by the government, like, say, for instance, the tourism grant, Amata. That housekeeper who works at a hotel that doesn't do smartphones, she couldn't even apply because she doesn't know how to do things online. So, but she needed that $1,000 a month, you know, and I had to assist a lot of people like that. So what I want to do is try to bring as many people along, because you get the benefit of services from what government offers and efficiencies, but also those same services and platforms allow you to connect with me very quickly and have a meeting like this about a personal matter. Or, I can send a survey out on the domestic partnership bill, and they can say, Kenneth, I support it, or no, I don't support it, or whatever their feelings are. So that's one of the game plans there in respect to that. But getting back to your question, I am honored. It's been stressful. I'm not gonna lie. There's many days where I just want to come home and just break down. But the honor you get, the privilege you get when you serve, and the people are happy and thank you and say, Kenneth, thank you for standing for me, or thank you for doing this, or whatever it is, the request of their problems, and I find a solution. It's the most satisfying feeling other than being a parent. And I love it. I'm not even going to pretend. I love representing the people of Georgetown Central. They're really amazing. Yes, they put a lot of pressure on me, but that's what they're supposed to do. So I accept it, and I actually look forward to hopefully being their voice again in 2021.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that synopsis, Kenneth. And we'll probably have an opportunity this morning to talk about some of your more challenging times, because the thing about being, it's like an MLA is, obviously you guys are public figures. You are, this topic of what a public figure is kind of recently played a bit of a role in this trial that I've been going through in court. And the question really becomes, what is a public figure? Obviously, most people accept that politicians are public figures, or business people public figures, and to what extent. But once people put themselves in the political arena, there's no kind of pulling back from that. I think even if you're unsuccessful, you do remain in the definition or the realm of being a public figure, probably forever. People are always kind of watching you. And of course, in your case, you are an elected official. And so the pressure is on. You're a little bit of a celebrity, in the sense that people want to know your every single move, and they're critical of everything that you do or don't do, or, you're constantly under a microscope, and that can certainly not be an easy position to have to be under. And I always say to people, as you know, I dabbled in politics. I was one of the founding members of the PPM. I'm no longer affiliated with any political party, but back in the day, I was very much involved in the protests. We, did protests in town with our wheelbarrows on the steps of the government building, protesting against McKeeva Bush, protesting against the status grants, not against him personally, but, initiatives that he had deployed, such as the status grants, for example. And when you're involved within the party ranks and at the grassroots level, I think that you see a lot of things that the average person doesn't get the opportunity to take note of, or to really see that's going on. And you, of course, have had the unique position of also being there, even at a deeper level than I was. I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily know this or may not remember this, but I actually was the person who set up the first PPM office in Mr. Tommy Bodden's building. There off of, what's the name of that street? Is that considered Shedden Road? But anyway, yeah, you have been there on the inside. You've been the premier's political analyst, I think was the name that they'd given you. And that
political assistant.
Political assistant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm sure you came across a lot of interesting information that you were privy to. Unfortunately, you've had a bit of a tumultuous relationship with the PPM. But you're not the only person. We've seen people leave the PPM. There's been Wayne Panton most recently, Ozzy Bodden, Alva Saku has left and fallen out with the PPM. Now, at the moment, Kenneth, you are not part of, obviously, the current government, which is a coalition government. And you are also not part of the official opposition. You sit with Mr. Ezard Miller, and I think it's just the two of you that are just backbenchers, but you're not part of the official opposition. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're independent members of the House, yes.
Right, okay. So there are independent members who still form the official opposition, because are they still considered independent members?
Who? Which ones are you speaking about?
The official opposition. So Chris Saunders.
Well, they were elected as independent members. I think they still consider themselves as independent members. They haven't formally started any party, so they're a group of independents who've agreed to come together to be the official opposition.
Right.
This whole official unofficial is very vague, and I'm not sure if we have flushed that whole analysis out properly yet, but I think it's a moot point. All of our goal on the opposition side, on the opposite side of the government, should I say it that way, is to hold the government accountable, regardless if you're a part of the official opposition or not. We all do the same thing. It's just an arrangement between them to say they're sticking together. That's what really that is. And yeah, so I'll just leave that there because
Okay.
I think it's not that important.
All right, so we're gonna go there, Kenneth, in terms of you have been part of the official opposition twice now, and for well, come to think of it, I was going to say for different reasons, but really and truly, it's the same reason in a way. They have decided, or you have decided, to kind of go your separate ways. This last time was very, very interesting. It caused a lot of controversy for you. And I think you were probably under maybe the most political heat that you have felt since being an elected official. But basically, you took a position in relation to Mr. McKeever Bush, who is the representative for, is it West Bay West? North?
I don't even.
Yeah, I can't keep up with the new single member constituencies, but West Bay. He's somewhere in one of the 4 areas of West Bay, the 4 quadrants. And basically, I think everybody knows that Mr. Bush is alleged to have assaulted a barmaid, and which he later admitted in an apology letter that he did something to her, which he claims that he does not remember. But you came out saying that you wanted to take the position of just waiting and allowing the judiciary or the judicial system to take its course. And I thought that, thank you, Jebby. Jebby's clarified it's West Bay West. And so, that was kind of interesting because you've been in that position before with Mr. Bush, where you have said, again, there were allegations against him with some misbehavior in the States. And you said, hold on a second. We need to wait. Let's not rush to judgment. Let's not do anything in terms of his position. Wait until the court system has run through its course. I do think that is a very interesting perspective to take in light of his position, not even just as an MLA, but as a Speaker of the House. The judicial system has now begun. So I want you to explain to us, in your viewpoint, now that he has been arrested and he has been charged, at what point were you comfortable saying, okay, he should step down as Speaker of the House, or something should be done or publicly said about this, as opposed to just letting the judicial system take its place? Are you expecting that to go from now to the next 2 years, potentially, because he has pled not guilty until they can get to, having a trial for him and all that? How does this process work in your mind?
Well, first, I wasn't sure that I was going to be speaking about this today, but it's all the same. As you said, I'm a public figure, so I'm prepared for anything. First things first, we got to recognize is a case before the court, so I'm going to be very limited to anything I say in relationship to that. But my position when I started was quite simple. If I was to take a position, there has to be an assumption of guilt by asking him to step down. And I think that, particularly at the time when the call for him to be taken out as Speaker was premature, because he wasn't even charged at the time. There's a lot of allegations on both sides of things, and as a representative, I can't go based on allegations. I have to go based on more facts. I'm still actually waiting to actually, I would like to go to the courts and actually hear what was said, because it's important for me to see what the evidence is too. Because in the realm of appointment of the Speaker, I am one of 18 who chooses whether he's the Speaker or not. But also from the I thought it was premature, also from the basis of that there's a reality that the government wasn't going to move him. But most importantly, as you know, I've had difficulties in my life, and thankfully the good Lord gave me opportunities to get over those humps. But being um, found guilty by the court of public opinion before you even had your day in court is not a good feeling, and I think everybody is deserving of that right. It would be unfair to me to say to him or anybody for that fact that I presume that you're guilty on a factor before you've had your say. There's many young people in my community who face that struggle, and it would be hypocritical for me to say, for instance, if a young man or a young lady or anybody for that fact got themselves in difficulty and say, listen, I didn't do it. I said, okay, everybody's due to their fair day in court. Um, so that was my premise there. Nothing more to it. I think a lot of people made more of it than what I said, because a lot of, even yourself, I must say, I wrote a statement saying that, I think it was premature to call for him to step down. Now, if there was different calls at different times, there may be more legitimate reasons for that. But um, at that stage, he wasn't even formally charged. We wasn't sure. There were so many questions about whether the police was going to arrest him or whether he was going to be charged and all that. But I don't want to get much further into that because we're going to deter from the topic of today. But I understand how people feel that they may perceive that I am siding with Mr. Bush. I recognize that when I released my statement, when my team and I spoke about what my position was. So I think it was the right thing to do. If I didn't take that position, I think it would be hypocritical in any other sense. Hi, baby. Have a lovely day. I think it'd be hypocritical for me to do so, especially being before the courts myself. You know what I'm saying? So I think even though today people still disagree with the fact, they say, "Oh, Mr. Bush has to go," and they have that right to that position. I think the courts are qualified enough to make the necessary judgments, and I leave it up to them.
Okay. All right. We'll leave that there for now. This concept of participatory democracy. So I want to break this down for the benefit of our viewers. We've had about 114 people now tuned in to the program this morning. So I certainly want to ensure that we all have an equal understanding of what this means. It's a concept that I'm actually well familiar with because over the years I've read some very interesting sort of opinion pieces on participatory democracy. So basically, that's a fancy word for democracy, which we all believe and think that we live in a democratic society where you are electing officials to represent you, the people, represent your needs and the issues that are important to you, and make decisions that are in your best interest. But true participatory democracy really puts the emphasis on the broad participation of constituents in the direction and operation of political systems. So it's not so much your representatives representing you as much as it is them making you more a part of the process, so to speak. And there's some people who argue that there's a lot of fundamental issues with participatory democracy. So at times we will see the people interjecting themselves into the political system, but there are other times when they're just happy to allow their politicians to do the jobs that they are elected to do. And so some people do not believe in the concept of participatory democracy. They believe that, you have elected me because you have a belief and trust in the things that I have sold you at election time. And now it is time for me to get on with doing the job of representing the people. And some people argue that an elected official will always have a true sense of what the people desire and what they want. And sometimes, in fact, what the people desire and what they want may not even be in their best interest because they don't understand all of the intricate details of what is being proposed by way of legislation, et cetera. Now, Kenneth has attempted to, I think, set himself aside, whether intentionally or not, as someone who really believes in participatory democracy. So, in other words, he wants to gauge the pulse of the people on an ongoing basis. So, Odette, good morning to you. Odette, can you WhatsApp me, by the way, because we keep trying to get together so that I can give you your gift certificate that you won sometime a few weeks back. I'm definitely in town today, so please message me. Sophia, good morning. Good morning, Rosita. Albert says that parliamentary supremacy equals parliament is supreme, like in the UK. Constitutional supremacy is constitution is supreme over the parliament, and the parliament can exercise its functions, being only within the bounds of the constitution. Cayman has constitutional supremacy. But I think, Alric, this is more a question of representation from the political side of things. And so Alric, I think, may find it interesting to know that, Kenneth has demonstrated that he is a true believer in participatory democracy. Now, we'll see how throughout Kenneth's political career, how well that works for him, because I do believe that there's some flawed issues with it, just from a theoretical and practical perspective. But Kenneth was supposed to be, as you guys will recall, actually, had we had the referendum, he was going to be piggy banking on the referendum to garnish the public's view on a number of issues. So that was one example of how Kenneth intended to garnish.
Well, Sandra, if you allow me for a second to just say a few things, because I don't want the audience to be left with the concept of participatory democracy have to be an absolute thing. Like you say, there's no such thing as an absolute participatory democracy. And the reason for that is every decision that you make, you would have to go through a referendum. Is that practical? No. But there are issues that are sensitive enough that, particularly with such a small jurisdiction of the Cayman Islands, that we should try our endeavor best, as often as we possibly can, to involve the people in decisions. And this is why I think the infrastructures need to be set up to allow that to be done in an easy way. The fact that we only have 23,000 registered voters is such a small number. You can easily put in infrastructure where people can, on the way to the supermarket, go and say, oh, I'm Kenneth Bryan and I don't like where that road is going, click. And obviously you don't necessarily have to make all of those infrastructures that gives people their opinion have to be binding, but it gives you a good guidance as to the direction to where to go. Because what we're doing is allowing the feelings of representatives to guide all decisions. Now, we have 19 elected persons. Are all of them perfect? No, 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 no. Now, all of them bad? No, of course not. But I think that if you give more opportunities for a better gauge, a better sample of what the public is feeling, it holds them to account. Because let's say, for instance, the Smith Barcadere. If you were to just hold just a weekend feel of Georgetowners or everybody in the Cayman Islands, do you think the Smith Barcadere should have been done over? And allow them to just go pop down. Those who care enough about this matter, for or against, to come and just say no or yes. I mean, you would get a good feel, and the numbers usually would be able to tell you that. So does that have to be ultimately what we do every time? No, but there are matters that are sensitive enough that I think should go to the people. The port was an example as well. The port should have been one of those things that went to the people. And I think that you're going to highlight the complexities or the difficulties of participatory democracy. They can't happen all the time. You're never going to be 100% perfect. And even during an election, it's not 100% perfect because not everybody comes out to participate. So you can only go based on the amount of people who participate in the direct democratic process of giving their opinion. And sometimes there's not a lot of people who do that. But my job is to give every opportunity to have my door open to say, listen, I know you trust me. I know you elected me to make that decision. But some things you need to take a little bit of time to gauge your mind and to direct me. Now, of course, it's my job to look at all facts and make the decision on their behalf. But I don't like the idea of leaving my people out of serious decisions. So I think somebody else asked me this question before, and I said it has to be a combination of me doing what I understand to be the best circumstances with the combination of what the people are guiding me to do. Because what I'm really worried about, particularly with the topic of which we were supposed to be talking about already this morning, this is the domestic partnership bill, is I may not be able to get a very large poll of what the people want me to do with this bill. I know what I think, but I would like to have an idea from from my constituents. And one of the things that is bothering me is that the public consultation on this bill probably came at one of the most difficult times, which is we're still in the environment of the pandemic. There's still a lot of fear of gatherings, and the regulations are still there about how many people can be gathered. So the question is, how much public consultation can we possibly have? We can't have any town hall meetings. I literally would have to go phone number by phone number and calling everybody and asking them about it, because I don't want to go out to the neighborhoods and expose people in their households. So there's a lot of difficulties with this public consultation, and the government themselves, in respect to this bill, hasn't said anything. All they have done, and I don't know if it's strategically or not, is did a 48-page bill and then just released it to everybody and said, okay, that's your public consultation, read it. When we all know that a complicated bill like this, well, I guess it's not really as complicated because it's basically a carbon copy of the marriage law, is that we've expected the people to go and understand legalese. Even some good doctors still have to hire a lawyer to say, tell me exactly what this means. What is this in a layman's term? I was hoping for the government to actually have, at the very least, considering the circumstances of the pandemic, some discussions on the radio. We haven't even heard that. So I think that from going back to the participatory democracy strategy and approach, there's not much that I can do right now. And this is why I encourage technology to be a new tool in my armor of representation, which is, at the very least, the good thing I'm happy about is that with my device, I have close to 800 registered voters on my phone. I'm happy to say that over 600 of them are on WhatsApp. So that's at least 50% of my voting block. And my intention is, as I have more discussions about this on the various different platforms and the like, that 3 or 4 days before the bill is coming to the House, which is on the 27th of this month, is to send out a message and say, listen, okay, how do you feel about this? Yes, no, or should it go to a referendum? And I haven't formalized the question yet, because you could slant it either way by the wording of the question. So I don't want to say anything more about that, but basically give them the option to choose, and I can tally that afterwards and say, it looks like my constituency wants me to go this direction. But right. I have to give more information about the realities of, information about the realities of what this bill means, because that's what I want to get into now, because a lot of my constituents are watching. I made sure I sent out a blast 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? I can't remember. Explaining to them that I'm going to be on the show with Sandy Hill, and that we're going to be talking about that. So they're going to get the opportunity to get a better understanding of what this bill is about in a average term, rather than reading a 48-page domestic partnership brand new piece of legislation, because we don't have a lot of legal counsel coming out and saying, what does this mean to a layman person? What does this mean in an average person's way? So that's the ultimate goal here now. I even lost where I was with the question there.
That's okay. So let me just backtrack a little bit, right? In terms of practical aspects of participatory democracy, even within that, theory, I guess is what we could call it, there are a lot of sub theories that exist. And one in particular that I think is interesting is what we call emancipatory, participatory democracy. Lots of big words here, but And what that means is even within a given community,
Mm-hmm.
you will have individuals who are less privileged and have less of a voice or less of an ability to even participate in the process, in the political process. So, on the one hand, you've got the majority, which don't always, they can be a very loud and vocal majority, but
Mm-hmm.
they certainly do not represent the needs or opinions of every single person in your community. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, the difficulty is how do you prioritize? Because if you truly believe in participatory democracy, are you saying then that the majority viewpoint always wins? And sometimes the majority viewpoint is actually a loud minority who just has a very strong voice. So
Fair
you
enough.
think that they're the majority viewpoint.
Well,
How
well,
do
well,
you,
if I can hold that, if I can hold you on that one point, I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? But here's where a level of responsibility is on the voter. So in this case, I am your representative. We know a domestic partnership bill is coming out. Now, there has been a number of people who've called me, messaged me, emailed me, saw me on the road and said, listen, I don't want you to support that. And some people said, Kenneth, it's the right thing. I hope you support it all the way. So
Mhm,
people are finding their voices in different ways and different platforms. And then
mhm,
there's some people who haven't said anything at all. Now,
mhm,
how do I factor in people who don't want to say anything? And this is the
right.
point of, we kind of go back to elections where people who don't vote or who don't say anything and be like,
Mhm,
but afterwards they may have issues with who were elected, and they go, well, maybe you should have gotten registered, maybe you should have
mhm,
participated in the process, so you can
right.
have a stronger claim to say that this is not right. So if I'm offering the option to participate in the direction of this decision and you don't take it, but somebody else has to
Mhm,
say for or against. Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let me see if I can sum it up quickly. If
mhm,
800 people decided to say yes or no for this bill, but the other 400 didn't participate, should I not take the direction of the 800 who took the time to listen to the discussions or potentially read the bill, and they gave me their direction, and say, oh, I can't make a decision because the other 400 hasn't gotten back to me yet. I can't do that, right? So there's time limits in that respect. So that's what consultation periods is about. It's about giving people the opportunity to get in the know, and then say how they feel about things. Um, and
mhm.
but not a lot of people really even know that this bill is coming. There's
Well,
no fanfare about it, sadly.
yeah. Well, I think too that people themselves, if they really care about what's happening in their country, they have a responsibility. And I got to
Yeah.
tell you that there are people who live a very relaxed and privileged lifestyle, perhaps. So they are not always that concerned about issues until it's literally knocking at their door. And there's
Yeah.
the old saying about, speaking up, how I didn't speak up for the Jews because I wasn't a Jew, how I didn't speak up for the Black people because I wasn't Black. And, it goes through the whole list. And then one day, there was nobody left to speak up for me. And then it was my turn
Yeah.
to have my rights trampled on. So I
Yeah.
think there is a general sense, especially when it comes to democratic communities, is that if you want to be represented and you want to be protected, you have to have a voice in some way, shape, or form, and you have to participate at some level. So even if it means just going out and voting for
Mm,
who you think is the best candidate to
mm.
represent you on election day, that's part of participating in the process.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Outside of that, you may not want to engage in every single topic or every single discussion. And what I find here in the Cayman Islands in particular is when you have people, because we do have people that love to have these deep conversations about issues and about politics. And when I think of deep conversations, I think of people like Denny Warren Jr., for example. Jevi likes to have really deep conversations. Alric
Mm,
likes to have deep conversations. And then I'm also cognizant of the fact that they make up a very small percentage of the community who really wants to break things down to that level. Most people are happy with having a superficial understanding of something and just keep it moving. They don't
fair
want
enough.
to go that deep. And part of our role here on Cayman Mall Road and even on this podcast show is to educate the general public, sometimes forcing them to think about something that's an alternative viewpoint, and to perhaps force them to be educated. So, yes, I think the government has a responsibility to do their part. This bill has been coming, whether we've wanted it or not, I think, for quite some time. There's been legal challenges around this. So I think anyone who has not followed the process and wasn't aware that this was an eventuality, that the bill would at least be tabled and put before the Legislative Assembly, simply hasn't been paying attention to anything that's been going on in this country, because this topic of same-sex marriage, partnership, domestic partnerships, has been one that has galvanized this community for at least several years now, as a forerunner in terms of a topical issue. So it has been extremely topical. People have had their opinions, their discussions, their debates back and forth. Now I think what is happening is looking at the specific details of the proposed bill and getting into the nitty gritty. But how many people, and I just want to do this by way of, I see some of your comments coming in. How many of you who are listening to this program right now actually have an interest, and we do intend to go through the bill, of delving into the details of the domestic partnership bill? And I just want you to say, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not really interested. It's the overarching concept that I'm interested in. I don't need to know any details. Now, let me give you an example. So last week I had someone message me, and this individual said to me that he was a little bit confused about the necessity to have, so this person says, Sandy, can you explain to me the necessity of having a separate domestic partnership bill with separate domestic partnership officers when Section 8 of the current marriage law, 2018 revision, makes it clear that marriage officers are also ministers of religion? Can they refuse a marriage if it's against their religion? And the reason I'm asking is it's because my representative wants his constituents to advise him, I think they're obviously referring to you here, Kenneth, on how to vote in Parliament when the MLAs meet next week. I was hoping to get some advice from you on this. Now, hopefully I did a good job of explaining to this individual that the current marriage law, which was a subject of a legal challenge by way of judicial review, has nothing directly to do with the domestic partnership bill. This is an alternative piece of legislation. So it has been accepted in the court. I think the appeal court came back and reversed the decision that the Chief Justice had essentially said that they have to amend and change the marriage law. The Court of Appeal said, hold on a second, not so much so, but they have to put something in place. So that's something in place to guarantee same-sex unions and others the right to have some sort of legal framework in which they operate their relationships, is now taken the form of this domestic partnership bill. So just to be clear, all of the things that are contained in the marriage law, including marriage officers, et cetera, you can't just say, oh, well, those same people can do the same job under domestic partnership law, without actually defining and having a category of, okay, we're going to now have domestic partnership officers, right? So you have to have a legislation that is comprehensive and that says who can, it's not a marriage, but who can recognize these unions, how this is going to work, how the union is going to be defined, et cetera, et cetera. The two pieces of legislation are not connected in the way that people think. And I know that this person is probably thinking, maybe this was a way for ministers of religion to circumvent any human rights and say, well, they're refusing because they are a minister to get involved in the domestic partnership process. But they don't have to, because there is the marriage law, which is, like I said, is a separate piece of legislation that has them defined and what they can do and what their remit is. And now the domestic partnership law allows people to become domestic partnership officers, so to speak, and they're totally unconnected and different things. So
if you allow me, just so
to try to separate the two concepts in their head, because I think it was dangerous trying to commingle it and tie them together. Now, Jevi says, participatory democracy requires a majority of the people to engage in the politics of the country. And as I see it, the biggest hindrance to that is my age group. And Jevi is in his 20s, as far as I know. The young
He's correct about that part.
More and more young people are expressing an interest in politics of the country. But that aside, I don't think I'd be wrong in saying that in many constituencies, the majority of the young people are not even registered to vote. And Mr. Kenneth Bryan, you've shown yourself to be excellent representative. And unfortunately, Jevi, that comment got cut off because it was a little bit too long. But he goes on to say, how do you meet the balance between satisfying the older voter and those younger voters? And they differ quite drastically.
Yes,
and the prime example, he says, is domestic partnership bill.
Yeah, he's 100% correct. Because the interesting fact is that I did look into compendium of statistics in respect to the voters' numbers, and I'm just trying to find the exact figures here so I can express. Oh, here it is. I can express to the public where you know that politicians are going to respond to numbers because that's what keeps them elected. So they're going to respond to the people who have the highest percentage of votes, and ultimately that's what participatory democracy is about: is paying attention to the majority. Now, I'm going to give you an example of my constituency. So there's four groups of persons who are registered, and I have 1,257 registered persons to vote in Georgetown Central as of late 2018. So a year and a couple of months ago, waiting for the next survey to be done. But if you check out the numbers, from age 18 to 30 is only 173 people. Between 31 and 40, there's only 167 people. But as soon as you pass 40, the numbers shoot up the ranks, which is 488 between age 41 and 59, and between 60 and above is 429. So to make it simpler, the numbers, the percentage of persons who are registered to vote below age 40, between 18 and 40, is only like 27%. Everybody over 40 is like 73%. That's almost twice the amount. So in respect to the age bracket, and age also gives you a bit of a different in your thinking, they're not as represented as those who are older and above 40. So much of the legislation that we're going to have, because most politicians respond to the voters based on numbers, are going to be laws that reflect the thinking of the older voting class, if that makes sense. So sometimes I hear young people, a lot of younger voters say, oh, why are we ain't doing this? And I said, the reason why they ain't doing that is because you ain't registered to vote. It's simple. Because politician listens to voters. That's what they do, because they want to get elected again. And I don't think that narrative have sunk in enough for our younger voters. Hopefully, issues that are more sensitive to them. I think the cruise port was definitely one of those things that triggered the emotion that has caused them to get registered. And I think the percentages are going to increase. I'm waiting for actually a survey of that now to get the feedback, because you need to know your clients, if I dare say, or your customers, or the people that you serve, to better understand how to represent them, you know? So he's right in that respect.
Okay. We have Eden, who's joined the conversation. Thank you so much, Eden. Eden says, good morning. Yes, it seems like a summary of these bills prepared in an objective manner would be helpful for the people to understand the issue at hand. Runika says, smart thinking, thumbs up. Maureen, good morning. Debbie is joining the conversation. Piers says, if you don't vote, you can't complain. I totally agree with Mr. Bryan there. If you don't participate, more fool you. Anthony Pandui says that he is watching. Piers also says people of generations have fought and died for representative voting. How can people just throw that vote away? It's a good question. Mitzi and Jevi, George Fullerton is joined in. Good morning, George. Panda says, yes, I'm interested. Alright goes on to say large percentage of registered voters have been 40 years old and up, and the views of the under 40 are important too. Marl Road will be having a talk show featuring young people so that they can share their views. And thank you, Alric, for actually reminding me at this critical juncture to say that we're going to be closing off the naming of that show this week. On Thursday, we hope to have on Thursday evening's program a vote for what the final name will be. And that will be very much a participatory process. Ironically enough, if you're interested as a young person, hopefully, I see some older people wanting to submit their opinions on what the show should be called. But like I said from the onset, this is a show for young people. And when we say young, we actually mean 18 and younger. So technically, they're not even eligible to vote yet. But I think the sooner that we get young persons involved in understanding how they can shape and reshape their communities, the better off we all will be. So as a 15-year-old, you have a voice and you can protest peacefully. You can care about the environment. You can be out there on the government steps with your placard. Understanding that your voice, despite the fact that you are not yet a voter, should still matter. And I think that that's an interesting point to maybe address here, is that there are a lot of people in our community who technically don't get a vote, you know, whether it's because of their age, they're not yet registered or able to register to vote, their children, they're underage, they're handicapped, so, you know, they can't vote, but they still deserve the best possible representation. And it's
I'm not sure if I can agree with the handicap part, because there's provisions in the elections law that allow you, as long as your frame of mind is not altered by a mental handicap.
I wasn't really meaning physical handicap. I mean people who are not able to even understand the process.
Gotcha.
They still have a right to be represented and to have their rights protected.
Of course, yes, you're right.
Over the years, that obviously that has happened most often by their loved ones pushing for certain pieces of agenda and legislation to be put in place. You know, this domestic partnership bill is obviously a side issue of the marriage challenge, and it comes down to, on the one hand, people saying that this is an argument of equality and equal recognition under the laws of a country. And on the other side, you've got the very staunch religious community, which does make up a portion of this country, who have said, and the irony of this is I see there is a petition in circulation right now that is saying, let's stop this bill. And I find that so interesting, because during the initial debate process and the initial court case, it was like, okay, we don't support this because, you know, there are people seeking to change the definition of marriage. And so it was more of a, we need to protect the sanctity of the institution of marriage. And that was most important. And so we can't redefine what marriage is. Marriage, our Constitution says, is between a man and a woman. And now what we hear happening is a shifting, even by some of those very same voices, of we're not going to support domestic partnerships. So it's no longer about protecting the sanctity of marriage, because the domestic partnership bill, legislation, and rights doesn't touch the sanctity of marriage in any way, shape, or form. Now it's about, no. We are still not going to accept any sort of legislation, really, is what the bottom line comes down to. But now they're going to pick apart and have problems with the domestic partnership bill. And it's really based on their fundamental beliefs that homosexuality is a sin, and we are supposed to be a Christian community. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. And in their minds, it has nothing to do with equality or anything else. And of course, there are people who are on the opposite side of that argument who are saying, hold on, that can't be right. You know, we have to make sure that people have equal rights. Love is love. I shouldn't be in a position to dictate to you who you love or who you don't love, within reason, of course, because as we know in this program, you can't love a child in any sort of a, you know, romantic fashion without that being completely against the law. But So those are the fundamental issues here, and I think that
Yeah,
if we need
I
to be honest, this is a very I like to call us at times one day Christians. So we get up and we go to church on a Sunday, and we profess. I know a lot of us don't want to hear this. We profess to be Christians, and we're going to sit there. We're going to listen to the sermon, and we're going to agree with what the pastor, the minister has to say. And even as we're in church, we're WhatsApping people and texting people. Oh, what numbers played today? So gambling is supposed to be a sin, but we're okay with that. After church, we're gonna, go out and enjoy a nice gluttonous meal. So we forget that gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins. Later on that night, a lot of us may not even be married, but we're gonna be fornicating and having a great time outside of what the Bible says is permissible. So there's so many things that we are, okay with as Christians. But in this particular community, it seems like the one issue or the one topic that we're not okay with are same-sex or homosexual relationships. Kenneth, what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's some justification to what you said there, that people can come to those kinds of conclusions, that it seems as if there's a little bit of hypocrisy that's happening in our society. But I don't try to focus on the persons who behave in that way, but more so on trying to protect the principle of both sides, because regardless of whether you agree with Christians or not, they have a right for their Christianity to be protected. But also, those who are not of the Christian faith also have to have their human rights protected. And in my humble opinion, I think this domestic partnership qualifies that. But again, that is my personal view, and I'm a voter of Georgetown East. So I will have my conversation with my representative in respect to that. I am doing a job where I act on behalf of people. I'm like a lawyer. I go into a courtroom and I argue the case for the people that I represent. So it's not as simple as, yes, this is my opinion. I think that this bill satisfies the rights that they truly deserve in respect to this country, because we did sign up to a human rights constitution, and they are deserving of that right. But where I find my conflict is that I'm a voice. I'm not just my opinion. I'm a voice of a group of people, and I have to respect that. I don't think legislators have the privilege of just going, well, I know what's better for you. I'll just do what I think is best for you. I think that, yes, you could be guided on what you feel is right, but you also have to be guided by what the wishes are. And what I think is, and I hope to happen, is that the feedback I'm going to get from my constituents is recognizing that even if you're of a Christian faith and foundation, that this bill does not impede on your ability to continue being a Christian. This bill has nothing to do with stopping you from having your faith in Christ. Yes, in the view of Christians, it may actually recognize something that you see as a sin. Mm-hmm. But I want to point out something, and this is something I think a lot of people don't sometimes recognize, is that when we talk about the faith and the Christianity, because this is where all the issues come up, right? Is about the act of sexual acts with a person of the same sex is the sin. Mm-hmm. It can't be the love, right? So I love my father, I love my brothers, I love my nephews, I love my best friend who are males. So from a Christian faith, that can't be the sin. So it has to be the act. And one of the things I found is that, and I don't think a lot of people realize that the act itself is already legal in this country. And I'm going to read a piece of the penal code for you. It's the Penal Code 2019 revision. And you can go to at the end of the penal code if you want to, just Google it. And there's an order in council that was done in 2000 that a lot of people are not aware of. I know, Sandra, you're aware of this, but there used to be a law called the Boogery Law, that
Mhm.
prevented persons of the same sex to have anal intercourse. And you could be charged and locked up for that. That was taken out by order in council in 2000. And I'll read it. It says, by order in council made on the 13th day of December 2000, it is provided inter alia that a homosexual act in private shall not be an offense, provided that the parties consent thereto and have attained the age of 18. So the act that we talk about in our Christian faith, that is the sin, is already legal here in the Cayman Islands. And I tried
Did we,
to
I'm sorry, did we not decriminalize buggery?
that's what that's saying. That's what I'm
Okay,
just saying.
right.
That's what that
Okay.
law says.
So,
So
I mean,
it's
there are people who will disagree with you. There are people who will say that it has nothing to do with the act because, first of all, there are homosexual individuals who see themselves very much as a Christian and they do not believe in premarital sex, just like other Christians don't. So they will not be engaging in any sort of activity, but they still love people who are of the same sexual orientation. And so it may not have anything to do with sex at all. And Eden says
so
Christ never talked
I
about
just
homosexuality.
I
What he
want to see if
talked about was judging.
I just want to understand what you're saying. So the audience and I are also in the same agreement, right? So if it's not the act, what is it that
It's the
persons
very
of faith?
idea. I mean, this is just my opinion, right? But
Okay,
what I
okay.
hear people saying is it is the very idea that a woman can love a woman. It is the very idea that a man can love a man that they fundamentally have an issue with. And then
Well, don't.
obviously their mind starts to get into, well, what is it that they're doing together? But listen to me just a second, Kenneth.
Okay.
In terms of sexual acts, I don't know what two opposite sex individuals are doing within the confines of their bedroom. And it's none of my business what they're doing, as long as it doesn't involve a child or an animal. I don't honestly care. So they could be buggering each other and they're two opposite sex individuals. And so what does that make it? Does that mean that that's, an issue for the Christian persons who are trying to glare into what those individuals are doing? So I don't think it has anything to do with the sexual act at all.
Well, no, but I think we're saying the same thing, Sandy.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the concern about the sinful act is already a legal matter. It's already legal in the Cayman Islands to do so. So why I say that is to refer to the fact that this document, the Domestic Partnership Bill, is a matter of administration of a relationship, not the act of the sin. Because you were just saying that some people have issue with just the idea. I love my best friend. My best friend is a man. He's my best friend. I love him. I care about him. I want to make sure he's okay, but I'm not in a sexual relationship with him. My father is a man. I love my father.
Kinds of love, though, Kenneth. I mean, you obviously
Okay.
don't love him in a romantic way. So I think we're talking about two different things here. I mean, you can love someone platonically, which is what you're talking about. So
yes,
you love him as a brother.
I agree. So, but my question is, if a person is loving somebody in that way, they're going to do the act. So the law in itself allows the act and the love.
I don't agree with you.
Well, that's fine. That's your opinion, and this is mine. So I'm cool with that.
I mean, I know a lot of people who love each other romantically and
never have sex.
It never gets into a sexual relationship. Like the two are not necessarily going to meet. I mean, oftentimes that's what we assume or we presume to be the case. But
okay, well, the good thing is the thing about democracy is we're all allowed to have our opinion, right? So that's the whole purpose of the show.
For sure.
But
now,
the thing
speaking of opinions,
can I just quickly say this part, if that's okay? One of the key things I want to leave the listening audience with is that we have two different views to this. So a Christian view, and then those who could be Christian but still don't necessarily think that a relationship of persons of the opposites of the same sex is a problem. I want people to recognize that this doesn't impede on anybody's rights. It's actually only given the rights to those who have been disenfranchised for a long time. And Caymanians who are, regardless of their faith, regardless of whether they believe in God or not, or they do believe in God, but but are accepting of what is perceived as sin, or whether they may believe that this is not sinful and God loves me regardless, it doesn't affect the other. And that's one of the things that I'm having a difficulty understanding, because if and when this bill passes, heterosexual persons are not stopped from being married. They're not going to be any rights taken away from them. Their life is not going to change. If this bill passes, it almost is going to pretend like nothing really happened, because this law is a set of rules and guidelines over the administration of a relationship, not the actual relationship. The relationship can happen today. Two men, two women can love each other today in this country, and it's legal. We're not in Iraq where you could possibly be shot down for that as a Muslim. You know what I'm saying? Those things happen here today. And if we think that we can stop that now, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure in respect to thinking that even if you don't agree with it, that anybody has the right to say, no, you cannot do that. There's no way for you to stop that. And it's not, neither is it right for you to try to stop a person's personal choice. I mean, I just don't see the understanding of it.
Yeah, I think that that's the issue, Kenneth, is there are people in this community who believe that they can dictate how you as an adult choose to live your life, even when it is not illegal. It is a question of religion and morality. And they wish to impose.
But religion is a choice. Religion is a choice. And that's the good thing about Christianity.
They don't see it that way. They believe
the teachings that I was taught, right, was I gave my life to the Lord when I was about 14. I did it again when I was in my early 20s. And like what we call in Christianity, I'm a backslider, right?
Yes.
But one thing I always know is that the Christian faith is one of a personal choice. It's your personal commitment to God.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. So the teachings of Christianity is not to impose your will, your Christian way on others. It's actually, God asks you to say, you need to make the sacrifice to be a part of it. So I don't think, and this is my humble opinion again, these are just my opinions, that I don't think that allowing such a bill, a domestic partnership bill, is the way of Christ's teaching, which is to impose the Christian way on them. It's actually supposed to be one of, here's the message of God, and it's for you to accept it.
Right.
So people,
yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, Kenneth, and I agree that that's the way it should be. But in the real world, what it appears to be, and again, I grew up in the Christian faith, and I am not I'm not saved at this particular time, but I believe in a lot of the good principles of the Bible, although a few of the books are missing, and there's a lot of questions in my mind that I do have. I also believe very firmly that it's a matter of choice, and that no one can speak for me and my soul. But despite that, I see people judging. So that's why I really appreciate what Eden said, that Christ never talked about homosexuality, but he certainly talked about judging. And I see people who are ministers of religion, who see themselves as deacons in the church, or just regular run-of-the-mill Christians, who believe that they can dictate your morality for you. And that's what some of our legislation even tries to do. They try to tell you what is morally wrong. And on this particular issue, they have a very, very strong opinion that it's morally wrong, and that is, at that point, your choice to decide what you will do with your life, whether to believe in Christ or not, or to believe in human rights versus, condemning people for the act of loving a same-sex person, doesn't feel like a choice. These people are saying, this is very black and white, and this is what it is, and you will be condemned, and your soul will be condemned if you do not share the viewpoint that we share, and if you do not believe this. And not only that, but we wish to prevent legally the people in this country from even being able to enter into these domestic partnership type of relationships. Now, let's just read a few comments. Carrie says, DPB kills marriage. And at first I was like, what the heck is DPB? But Jevi, thank you for being on the ball. That's the abbreviation for the domestic partnership bill. Debbie responded and said, no, infidelity and divorce kills marriages. not the domestic partnership bill. Because if that was the case, Carrie, the bill hasn't gone anywhere yet. It hasn't turned into law, but we see marriages being killed all the time. And I agree with Debbie. Most of that has nothing to do with, I would say 99.999% that has nothing to do with other people. It's the persons in the relationship were either not compatible, involved in infidelities, whatever. There are issues that impact that have absolutely nothing to do with the domestic partnership bill. So how can we now put the blame on failed marriages, which have long preceded any sort of human rights on this topic, for being the cause of that? Sue is in agreement with Debbie. And Debbie goes on to say real education would greatly benefit the Christian community in the Cayman Islands. Sharon says true words. I'm not sure exactly what word she was referring to. But Eden says people often seek to justify their prejudices. Sexual practice, like spiritual practice, is one's own personal business. Love is love. Alma says it's not the act, it would be the diversity. How can to tell a pastor, a man of God, that he has to marry people of opposite sex? So now Alma's saying in her mind, the issue becomes one of trying to force a pastor to marry someone of the opposite sex. But Alma,
let me address that, please, if you don't mind. This is the bill here on page 33, section clause 29. It says provision in respect to marriage officers, protection for marriage officers. It says a person granted a license as a marriage officer under the Marriage Law 2010 revision is not authorized to formalize a domestic partnership unless the person is also appointed a domestic partnership officer under this law. Section 2, no person may compel a marriage officer to appoint under the marriage law to permit the use of any place of worship under the control of the marriage officer for the formalization of a domestic partnership. So that part is protected. No marriage officer is going to be forced to marry persons in a domestic partnership, regardless of heterosexual or homosexual, and neither can they force to use the premises like their churches. So that one is protected in the law for those who may have concern about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think even under the marriage law, even if that was amended to have allowed or permitted same-sex marriages, I think it is understood that a marriage officer always has a choice, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's
the
like
right
you
to
telling
deny.
a lawyer.
Yeah,
that's like you telling a lawyer you have to represent this person that is alleged to have killed someone. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to represent that person. There's always that element of free choice, even in the exercise of your duties as a marriage officer. So, Alma, I don't think that is really the issue. I think people will come up with these supposed issues because they don't want to address, in my opinion, again, what Eden has said, is this is just a matter of people trying to justify their prejudices. No one's going to force you to minister of religion. I mean, no one's going to force you to have functions in your church. But it's ironic on so many levels, because we see underage girls that are pregnant being able to use a school hall or a school facility to host a baby shower, and people show up to that and see no issue of morality with that whatsoever.
Well, Sandy, if I can, I really want to try to, if I'm allowed on your show, to guard this conversation not to be one of, well, they're saying this, but they're hypocritical. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I don't want that tone to come off that way. What I want ultimately is for us to actually come to a conclusion to say this bill actually presents the protection in both cases. So one, the sanctity of marriage is protected and hasn't changed. So those of Christian faith can feel comforted to say, you know what could have happened here was the ruling of the Chief Justice in the first place could have changed the definition of marriage. And then you wouldn't even have what is known to be the sanctity of marriage from a Christian standpoint. What this bill does, in my opinion, is to allow a compromise for both sides of this view to say, you have your faith, you have our Christian heritage, that is protected in that way. but we still are obligated under our human rights to award these rights which I personally think they are deserving of. That's my personal opinion. That can be done in this domestic partnership. So for those who may say, I am concerned about how it affects my Christian standpoint, actually, I thought that it may be smart to look at it as this is actually protecting the sanctity of your marriage, which is only can be between a man and a woman. Because if one of the worries, and I know some people want to dispute this, but one of the real concerns that is actually a possibility is if this bill is not passed and the UK does step in, quite like what they did with the buggery law in 2000, and does an order in council, that we might actually have marriage between anybody. And
well,
then,
this is what David actually says. I'll read David's comment since it's pertinent to that. But I just want to say, Kenneth, that it's difficult to have this discussion. I totally understand what you're trying to do, but I do believe that it is also difficult to have this discussion in a very narrow, like legal, like you're just going to narrowly look at it in this way, because what people are saying plays into whether or not they support the domestic partnership bill. And you get into all of these other things that form a part of that. So for example, Eden says that, we talk about, developers will never agree to protecting the mangroves and buttonwood wetlands, but they have to be protected for the well-being of future generations of Caymanians. So that's one example that he gives. Debbie says religion has no place in legal matters. Runika has her opinion, and Runika says God has made one man and one woman get married. Simple as that. And now David says, I think an interesting question would be, regardless of people's morality or opinion on this either way, if Cayman does not pass some kind of DPB, the UK Privy Council will likely act and will pass full marriage equality, which goes beyond the DPB. And the DPP does not pass gay marriage or change the fact that marriage is between one man and one woman. It does not require pastors to marry same-sex persons. It simply means certain people's rights of ownership, dissolution, work permit status, etc., are extended to protect people in a domestic partnership. And unfortunately, David, I can't see the rest of that comment if there was much more to it. And in fact, David is absolutely correct. Kenneth, you're absolutely correct. There's no doubt of what the outcome of this would be, because going back to the same-sex decision, the Court of Appeal decision that came down in, just give me 1 second here, I actually want to pull up.
It says, however, although the Court of Appeal found against Chantal Day and Ms. Vicky Bawden-Bush, the court went on to make a very unequivocal and strongly worded declaration to the effect that Ms. Day and Ms. Bawden-Bush are entitled expeditiously to legal protection in the Cayman Islands, which is functionally equivalent to marriage.
Yeah. So I've just put the link again to the story back in November when they did lose the appeal. And the court's position, and this is quite interesting because, again, the Court of Appeal has just done this the other day with the port as well. They're saying, listen, we're overturning the previous decision, but we understand why that decision was made. And despite it legally being in error, at the same time, it even went a step further, which it didn't do in the port decision, is it actually said in this same-sex case that they overturned, is that they issued a directive to the Legislative Assembly to essentially fix this issue. So the Legislative Assembly has no choice. They either fix it, and if they choose not to fix it, the outcome will be that the UK will likely have to step in, which isn't obviously what they want to do. They want this to be a domestically decided situation where the legislators, bring forth the relevant legislation. But the courts have said this is not an issue that you can continue to ignore, even on the basis of religion. People deserve to have, equal rights under the law. And you are, going against the very fundamentals of human rights if you do nothing about this. So
going back to what I was saying is that this the other angle to look at this is that this bill actually is indirectly protecting the Christian way of marriage as we see it here in the Cayman Islands. Marriage is between a man and a woman. You know what I'm saying? So, but the
Mhm.
question is not about whether marriage is supposed to be between a man and a woman, but now so whether or not the persons who are of homosexual relationships are should be granted those rights. And I don't think that's a question anymore. I just
Right.
don't see how anybody can question the fact that another Caymanian, another one of my brothers, another one of my sisters cannot have the same rights that I have. And I'm not cool with that, to be honest with you. I'm totally not cool with that. I really hope that I get the appropriate direction for my people, because I think that this bill is not about the relationship. This bill is about the rights that they are awarded to. And this document is about the management and laws and the regulations and the guidelines surrounding that relationship that awards them the same principles of, if you're on a dying bed with your partner, that you can say, doc, I want you to hold out longer because I think he's going to come through or she's going to come through. That's what I'm talking about. Those type of things that I cannot look at another Caymanian in the face and say, you shouldn't have those same rights as me. It's just not right. It's just not right. And I don't know how else to say that, because I recognize the problem. The dilemma for me is, that's my opinion, but my job is to represent the majority of the constituents that I stand for. I'm
Mhm.
hoping that when I come back to my people, that the people go, you know what, I do see this as, even if they're of Christian faith and strong belief that, you know, homosexuality is something that it should be forbidden, and the other various reasons, that they can recognize that this does not change anything in respect to the Christian faith. It does not impede on marriage itself. It does not stop what what the Christian faith believes is a sin from happening. So regardless if this bill passes or not, the thing that we're worried about from a Christian faith perspective still continues to happen. We're
Mhm.
not talking about the sexual act. That's why I said to you about the order in council in 2000, which is already illegal. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is an administrative document that gives people the exact same rights that I have. And I
Mhm.
believe every Caymanian should have that. So I know that's
Okay.
my personal view. So
Yep. Charles says the Cayman Islands should be drafting new laws explicitly preventing homosexual activities, not trying to protect sexual minorities. I'm a firm believer that being gay is a behavior which is considered a mental illness, and we already have laws for this condition. Supporting such bill is condoning homosexuality, which goes against our Christian heritage, beliefs, and our Constitution. My people, please don't be useful idiots and hold your representatives to a high standard after all the, and then it cuts off. Now, I don't know, this is Charles S. Whitaker. I don't know if this is the same Charles the Killer Whitaker, because I do know there's more than one Charles Whitaker. So, for the benefit of our audience, Charles, maybe you can clarify which Charles you are. Eden says, even if it's a choice, it's no one's right to dictate how or who another person loves. Let me just see what other comments. Good morning, Daisy. Thank you for tuning in. Eden says, what about the rights of all Caymanian families to live in peace? Do you think the law should tell you how to worship and pray? Or what you can do with your wife or girlfriend? If you're a bigot, own it. Christ never mentioned homosexuality, so it's not about Christianity. And I'm Caymanian and I believe in equal rights, so it's not about Caymanian culture. It's about your personal prejudice, but Charles Whitaker's judgment shouldn't dictate the law of the land any more than my judgments should.
well,
JD,
okay.
JD
That's okay.
shares
Go
that
ahead.
marriage predates Christianity, though. But you can't tell that to people who think the earth only existed for 6,000 years. And JD makes a very valid point. And actually, JD, in line with what you said, there was a Dookie some months back, it might have even been last year. She provided some very interesting insight into how the concept of marriage not only predates Christianity, but predates most religious beliefs. And so when people argue that Christianity and that marriage is a Christian sanctified sort of thing, that they've missed the mark and they don't know their history of human beings at all. And so, JD, I think it's very, very interesting.
Well, you see, regardless of your viewpoint on that, and let's say, for instance, because that person is saying, yeah, Christians are believing in this hypothetical Bible. That's not the point. The point is that regardless of what they believe, they still have the right to believe that religion too. They are protected under the same constitution that many people say that other people should be protected under too. So let's not undermine the viewpoint and religious protections of Christians either. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about that we're getting to a place rather than compromising to say, listen, this bill offers a balancing point that everybody should be satisfied with. And I want people to get to that place to say, my religion is still there. And for those who don't have a religious viewpoint, that's fine too. You're still having the privileges and the rights as everybody else throughout this domestic partnership bill. And then we should be satisfied with that, because this is not the time for division. We have so many other issues to be focused on and taken care of, particularly in this pandemic, particularly with so many Caymanians unemployed, to have the country divided. And I really want the current conversation to be as mature and simple and have a level of sympathy and empathy necessary for us to have this conversation without it dividing us. Because thankfully, so far, it hasn't gotten too hot. I've seen it hotter than this in respect to this topic. And we haven't seen any marches either way, either side. And then everybody's waiting with bated breath for what will happen. One of the things I'm really keeping my fingers crossed on, I'm praying about this, believe it or not, is that the conversation in the Legislative Assembly is one of maturity and respect for each other. Listen, I am not homosexual. I'm a heterosexual person. But the sexuality of a person has nothing to do with how I care about my people. And whether we should, it's like saying, what? Because they're homosexual, you shouldn't care about them, you shouldn't love them, you shouldn't offer them the same rights. I just can't compute that. And maybe I should hold back on my thoughts, because I don't want to influence people's views too much. That's my personal opinion. But I want us to make sure, that we can come to a conclusion that does not leave us divided, because what we could potentially have is a lot of animosity between the different groups and feelings. And if we just go, all right, as long as your side of your viewpoint isn't impacted negatively, then you should be okay. Because the Christian view, in my humble opinion, is not going to change the way we go to church, the way we practice our faith, the way we marry. Our rights are not going to be impeded if this bill is passed. The only thing that changes is for a positive of equality for those who are not of Christian faith. So I don't see how it's a losing situation. It's not. It only is going to help some Caymanians get to where they should have been in the first place. And those who have a problem with the sexual act, if we recognize this, one thing we have to recognize, there's nothing under the law, under human rights, that you can stop a person from their personal choice. How can you? I mean, you may say, the Bible may tell you to tell a person is wrong, but the Bible does not say that I'm going to arrest you and lock you up or not allow you to have rights because it's wrong. It says to encourage of the faith. So if homosexuality itself is a matter of choice, like what most people say, and we can, as Christians, cannot convince them that it is a sin for them not to choose to do it, then you failed in the delivery of the good word, according to what I understand it to be. Because the teachings of Christianity is one of getting people to accept that Jesus Christ is your savior, and it's a personal choice. So you can't force it on somebody. And I think that's where some of the direction is being lost. I think if we just respect each other's opinion and respect each other's own lives, I don't think we should have a problem here. I think we could definitely move on to something that is more just as important as this issue, if I dare say. Like jobs for Caymanians, particularly in this time, right? So again,
Right.
I'll probably zip it there. My advisor is probably going to go, you should have stopped from 15 minutes ago. Go ahead.
Well, the conversation continues on their comment section here. So Eden does, he says that the LA is going to be a circus like usual. Good luck with that, Kenny. So he does not believe that a lot of them will be particularly mature. I'm actually looking forward to this, Eden, to this debate, because we've seen some of those same people who were joking about Gapril and castigating an entire community here in the Cayman Islands around the world in recent times bear down and double down on the fact that they're humans and crying on the airwaves and so on. So I am particularly interested to see how they handle themselves in the Legislative Assembly on this particular topic going forward. And I'm looking for a level of maturity myself, Eden. We may not get it, but I think that I will certainly be watching those persons under an additional microscope, if you will, because I think in light of their own recent actions of wanting people to be sympathetic towards them, we'll see how much sympathy they have in general when and sympathy and a level of maturity when discussing topics pertinent to the Cayman Islands. Debbie says that she can't believe that we're still debating this topic in 2020, but here we are. Carlos says basic human rights shouldn't be up for debate. Marriage is not Christian, it's a legal structure. That's why you get it sorted at the courts, and the church ceremony is the show. Potentially the only thing Christian about marriage, as in the specific elements. However, marriage ceremonies existed in all religions and outside of religions.
Well, you see, can I just, I want to address that one point, because
Yeah.
I think that people don't recognize that laws are made by whom? Who are they made by?
Well, the Legislative Assembly.
They're made by the majority. And on so when he says, marriage between
Not always the majority, but the Legislative Assembly.
Okay, but yes, by a democratic process. So no matter how you twist it, those were the majority of the people democratically was selected. So we may not be happy about it, but it's not like they cheated to get in there to make the laws. We voted them in. You know what I'm saying? So when they say that marriage is not a Christian function, it's a legal structure. Yes, it is a legal structure. And legal structures are created by the people of that society. And the people of this society have said that marriage is between a man and a woman. So yes, you can separate the church from the state. But the state has also said, not only has the church said, but the state has also said that marriage is between a man and a woman. They said so in 2009. Now, what came up is the question is whether or not that by voting for the Constitution, by saying the marriage is between a man and a woman, did they say, well, I'm also talking about not anything else? And nobody can say that that's the case, because that wasn't on the referendum. Because you'd have to assume by you signing up to the Human Rights Convention that you're saying that people should have equal rights. So if you sign up to that, but also sign up to marriage between a man and a woman, this must mean that intent has to be that you'd have two separate pieces of legislation governing those relationships. That's the only thing I can come to.
Now, Kenneth, we did have a question that I'm just seeing. My apologies, it came at 7:41 this morning. And the person says, can you please ask Kenneth if he is now part owner of Coral Beach?
What?
Well,
Okay, hold on. Let me tell you what. Please let me clarify this, because that one will get hot real quick.
Okay.
As far as my understanding, Mr. Rankin, Kenny Rankin, is now managing partner down there. So don't mix up the Kennys, because there's enough controversy about that whole thing in respect to my position about Mr. Bush. Okay.
I see.
Please do not mix that up.
Kenneth Rankin, Kenneth Bryan. It is very easy to get them confused. So just for clarification of those of you who have no idea why the question was asked, Coral Beach is the location where the incident took place with Mr. Bush. So, of course, Mr. Bush doesn't have any, on paper, any direct ownership to Coral Beach, but it is understood that his son is one of the owners. And it's like a group of men, from what I understand, that own this facility. So the other Kenneth Rankin, potentially has some either management or ownership interests in Coral Beach.
I'm not sure of the structure. I don't even really know where Makiva fits in all of it. I'm hearing it just like how you hear it. As
Yeah.
I hear, matter of fact, some of the information I hear from you and from other media reports, because I never ask my colleagues about their personal business. So I'll never have a conversation with Mr. Bush about whether he has ownership there or not. I don't even know. I don't get into those conversations. It's strictly political in respect to my job as a legislator. I don't get into their personal lives. So, but I want to make sure that there's no ambiguity that I'm not involved in that Coral Beach property in any way. I think I heard, and I probably even shouldn't have said that, but if there's any Kennys involved, it's not Kenneth Bryan.
Okay. All right. Okay. So asked and answered. So yes. Thank you so much for submitting that. Just a reminder, folks, I mean, sometimes I forget to go to the Facebook messages and stuff like that, but we did just see that one that came in earlier in the morning. Probably a lot of times the quickest way is through WhatsApp because we are monitoring those messages. Kenneth, we just have a little bit of time left in the program. And so I want to pick your brain on one final topic before we part our ways for today. I just got another question at 6:23 a.m. This is, good morning, how are you? I'm messaging in regards to BritK pensions. The 45 days has been up for quite a few people and they have yet to receive their funds. Are you aware of what's causing them not to pay out, as well as what can be done to ensure the funds are received? This whole pension, I don't want you to answer that specifically, but this whole pension, COVID pension withdrawal has been a royal mess for a few of the pension administrators. By and large, Chamber and Silver Thatch have done a good job. Most people tell you that Silver Thatch was phenomenal, but there are other pension companies who struggle to get it together. I'm sure your constituents have probably been complaining to you about not receiving any correspondence from these pension administrators, or I dare say even their money. What is your view and what has transpired in relation to these pension companies?
I think that it was, if we can go back right now and say offer a little more time to the pension providers, I think we probably would have, because it is a lot of administrative work to liquidize assets in order to pay people out. So 45 days is a quick period to do that.
But how is it that the two largest providers on island, Chamber and Silver Thatch, by and large did it with ease? And not only did it with ease, but I understand in some instances, Silver Thatch in particular actually paid out way in advance of the 45 days. And then other people, you're into. I
can't tell you why, but I can tell you what I can't tell you why, but I can tell you why I speculate. And there's two main reasons for that. One, different companies have different structures and systems. Some have more employees than others. Some are trying to keep their employee staff levels down to the very bare minimum to obviously optimize their profits. And the other one is some companies could have more liquidity within their company than others. So for instance, one pension provider could have had most of their assets, in hard what do you call that, investments, as opposed to others. Some are quicker to turn it around. It's like, say for instance, if I owe you $50,000 and the only thing I have right now to pay you off is a piece of land that I own is $200,000, I need to quickly sell that. And how quickly can I sell that land to then give you the $50,000 cash? So I think that that's some of the problems. I don't think, I honestly, this is my opinion, I don't think any pension provider is going, oh, I don't want to pay you. I don't think that that's what the case is. I think that they have shown that if they haven't been able to pay right now, how efficient of a pension company they actually are. And I think what is going to result at the end of this is actually people going, the quality of this pension company is not as good as I thought it was. And you may actually have people going, you know what? Even though I took 10,000 plus my 25%, I want to move my pension now to a more stable company, because you're talking about having, you can't get back to me by email. You're talking about, you don't have enough staff. All of those things reflect on your ability as a pension provider to properly operate on your behalf as their pension controller.
Mm-hmm.
So just to answer the question, yes, it's inconvenient because these people are taking so long, and I think there's a potential chance that some of these pension providers may actually get a legal penalty because some of them has passed the
Well, they
45 day,
should. I mean, the
and they
law
and,
was
and they
very
should
clear.
they should. But
And
but
some of
I
them, I
understand the
mean,
predicament though. I do understand the predicament, and not
but
every
Kenneth,
situation is the same. Yeah.
yeah, just to be quite fair in their own words, some of them have stood up in the Public Accounts Committee and said that this shouldn't have been done, that people shouldn't have been allowed access to their pension funds and that they are not in agreement with it. And what should have been done, in their opinion, was a means-based test to see who should access their emergency funds. So I don't agree with you 100% that they're not saying that they didn't want to pay out. Even from a policy perspective, David, what's his name? Sorry, Brett Hill has basically said that he does not agree with government allowing people to dip into their pension fund.
Well, he doesn't have to agree with it. He doesn't have to agree with it, but he just has to follow the damn law.
Well,
You
he
know what I'm
hasn't done
saying?
that either.
I think he said that that's his personal opinion because I watched the proceedings myself. And
Yeah, but
listen, am I happy with what he said? No, but I'm
yeah,
not going to take away his right from his opinion, which is, I mean, I think when the pension bill came, I was of the viewpoint to support a means test as well, to say, or not even necessarily a means test, but maybe a lesser amount, because there's some people who are going to do that to go, I'm going to use some of it that, and I don't really have a lot of bills because I'm working or what have you. So you want to protect those bills. You want to protect those investments in their pension. But when you can't do one thing right, goes back to the same domestic partnership. You can't give one group of people the right to take it out and the others not. I just think it would be a whole legal argument again. So if one gets it, all should be able to get it because it's their money. So we may not agree with that, but I understand what he was trying to say. And he's going to say that because that's how they make their money. They don't want anybody to take it out. So are we surprised by that? No.
mhm.
What the most important thing is whether they follow the law. And I hope that they do, because if they don't,
Well, they haven't.
any pension administrator who does not follow the law and does not award my Caymanian people from being able to withdraw their money if they need to, or whether they just choose to, I see that as a serious violation against my people. And I will be promoting and pushing for them to be charged. That's my opinion.
Well, they haven't followed the law, but on that note, we are out of time. So, Kenneth, I do want to thank you very much for coming on the Cold Hard Truth. Hopefully, it wasn't too cold or too hard for you this morning,
You
and you'll
are
be back.
always cold and hard to me, Sandra. As close as friends we are. You see, a lot of people don't know how close we are
Yeah.
off the platform, and that we talk almost every single day. But you don't let up. And I tell somebody the other day, you remember? Let me close with this,
Yes.
Sandra. So I put in the parliamentary question on the whole journalism thing,
Oh,
and
yes.
then yes, nothing to do with you, and you can attest to that. I actually
Yeah,
called
I
you and
said
said,
it. I said it. And you know what? We probably should have. I have to bring you back on because I do want to have that discussion because
yeah.
I do think that you brought up some really important questions during that. But go on.
Yeah. So you remember I called you 2 nights
Mhm.
before. I put in the parliamentary question from 2 weeks ago
Yep.
because where my foundation came from is I'm a former journalist. And I think they forget that. And
Yeah.
it has had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with Rooster, but the principles of what I believe the
Hmm.
role of journalism plays. So
Yep.
as soon as I asked the question, I was doing my due diligence. Were you invited? Was Woody invited? Was this person invited? Because I believe that there was a bias. As soon
Hmm.
as I said that, oh yes, I'm in bed with Sandra Catron, not in bed literally, but I mean we're in cahoots with Sandra Catron to take down the government. It has nothing to do with that. I
Yeah.
said, to be honest with you, my hardest critic politically so far has been you. I'm still can't get over that article you wrote about me and Mr. Bush was in England. I was like, what does that have to do with it? I don't get it. But anyway, I still love you, you know that. And this is a part of my understanding that I'm
Yeah.
a public figure. So it is
Yeah.
what it is. And people need to get over that stuff.
And
But
and
politics
hopefully,
will be good.
as we continue this journey, especially with Cayman Mall Road, I'm really, really hoping that people understand that what we try to accomplish through our medium in particular is a level of accountability where everyone is held equally accountable. So it
Well, I
doesn't
can
matter
attest to
if
that.
you're my friend. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. It doesn't matter if you're expat or Caymanian. It doesn't matter if you're a Jamaican, if you're from the Philippines. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's about providing people with information in a timely fashion and trying to hold people, politicians, the regular Joe Schmo on the street, with a level of accountability. And even yesterday, and a little political lunch discussion, we were having the same question. And I think the message is slowly getting out there because people are like, you know what? It doesn't matter who you are. They like that I hold what they consider sort of the higher echelon of society accountable to people with the money and the power, but it equally doesn't matter. You know, if you're out there involving yourself in certain things, we're going to put it out there. We're going to hold you accountable one way or the other.
It's going to take them time to get accustomed to it, but eventually everybody will come around and it will be the norm. It happened in every jurisdiction where they had the control for a long time, and slowly as the ball starts to crumble, then eventually it goes, hey, you want to be a public figure? This is the way it is. So don't worry, they're going to come around. Anyway, it was a pleasure to be on your show. I want to thank everybody who tuned in and listened to me rant and rave. I appreciate it. For my constituents out there who watch the show, remember, it's important that when I send out that question, that you respond to it so I have a good feedback as to how my constituency feel. Remember, God always says to love each other. So let's remember that as well. Sandra, lovely talking to you. God bless and have a good day, okay?
Okay, Kenneth, thank you so much. So again, big thanks to Kenneth Bryan, the MLA for Georgetown Central, for joining us this morning on the program. Thank you, Morna. She says, what about God's laws? He made laws for us all to go by as well. The 10 Commandments, at the end of the day, I have to answer for myself, just my opinions. I judge nobody. I love one and love all. And I think that is the overarching message here, whether you're a Christian or not. You have to understand that what Jesus taught and what the Bible taught, even in terms of Christianity, is about personal accountability. We just talk about accountability, and he will not pull you in and hold you up for anybody else and what they did and what their sins were. It's about personal accountability. What did you do? What did you do, Sandra? What did you do, Carla? What did you do, Daisy? What did you do, Morna? And that is the end of that. Carlos says another reason why Caribbean people should not be debating basic human rights, especially around marriage, is that at some point in time, a Black human and a white human could not get married. The Bible and other prejudices were the justification for that. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Yolanda wants to know if there's going to be a Jamaica flight anytime soon. I know that there were some booked for July, Yolanda. I just need to double check those dates and perhaps I can get back to you on that. Let me just see if I can find anything online quickly. So Cayman Airways had released a press statement last month regarding the Jamaican flights. And I kind of think, let me just see if I can find it here, that there were a few booked for the month of July, both to Miami and Jamaica. But of course, you know, you've got to make sure that you contact the airlines to even be put on their waiting list, because if you haven't done so, you will be out of luck. So you've got to ensure that you're on that list early. I can't find the articles right now. So let me just touch bases with Cayman Airways and see when those flights are scheduled again, just by way of a reminder. So just keep an eye on the page and we shall advise from there. All right, folks, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, we wish to thank Kenneth Bryan. That was his first time on the program. I can't believe it. We've now been doing this for a year and a half. We've gone to daily morning segments. And Kenneth was obviously wanting to talk a bit about the domestic partnership bill. Now, here's the thing. We hope to delve into the discussion on the domestic partnership bill a little bit more in some of the various sections of the bill throughout this week. So I want you guys to stay tuned so that we can break it down and we can understand it. Of course, we are not lawyers here in this program, but we do our best to try to digest pieces of legislation, and any lawyer that wants to come on to help us break it down, by all means, you've got an open invitation. We keep inviting certain persons on, and of course, for whatever reason, they don't quite come on as readily as we would hope that they would. But open invitation. So Morna says, late Wanda Phillips. Hi, Kathy. Good morning. She's just tuning in. Yes, you are late, Kathy. We're about to sign off. And Sue says, wish there was flights to Jamaica, as that's where I used to be for my birthday, an all-inclusive hotel. Fabulous times. Well, Sue, there's repatriation flights, but I'm not so sure that right now you'd want to be jumping in a plane going anywhere in the world because of this COVID situation. So listen, Miami, Florida has taken over as the COVID capital of the United States. And not only the United States, but in fact, the headline yesterday said it is the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak, much like Wuhan was in China. So it is crazy what's happening in the US. And we will tomorrow morning and into this evening show update you guys on some of those things. In the meantime, we wish you a wonderful and safe day. And please tune back in this evening for continuation of the Cold Hard Truth.
Miracle Brokers is back. That's right. We're fully reopened and back to work. Our agents are here to serve you with all of your packing and shipping needs. Need to move? Don't worry. Give us a call today. Collect a package, shipping around the world, or straight to Cayman? You got it. Give us a call on 949-5989. Collection by personalized appointment only, where our dedicated agents are on standby to personally assist you. Don't forget to wear your mask, maintain social distancing, and one person per appointment. Check us out at miraclebrokers.com today. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.